Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure being here today again with another Bond webinars. Today it's an important day. It's the health, safety and environment. And in fact, this is the health and safety, the World Day for Health and Safety at Work. Today we'll have some presentations from our partners from Corteva. Paige will present her perspective or the Corteva view on the future of health and safety, and also Vijay from CIMMYT that would present the CIMMYT or practices at one of our key stations in Africa, that's Kiboko. And before, I would like just to put some words to emphasize the importance of this day. As I said, this is the World Day for Safety and Health at Work. And the theme for this year is to enhance the social dialogue towards a culture of safety and health. And this is important. The two words that I think that is important for us is the dialogue and the culture. So I'm saying that because acting together to build this positive safety and health culture. We had some, of course, health and safety is for everyone, is important for anything that we do, from independent of what we, in each area of organization we work, in each organization, health and safety is a culture. But for targeting the breeding operation, that is what the scope of our work, we organized this year together with the key operational leaders from breeding stations in Africa. We organized two workshops, one in Uganda and another one in Nigeria this year. And we have more than, I don't know exactly the numbers, but I suppose in total we have almost 40 people joining these workshops. So within that, we discuss many components of breeding operation. Components such as the technical components like seed processing, irrigation, or how to improve plotmanship, etc. But also some management or behavioral aspects like gender, or how to centralize the operation, etc. In one of the important component that we discussed was the health related to health and safety. And this we have defined or identified opportunities, challenges, gaps that we would tackle together. And some of that goes, for instance, we identified that some challenges related to PPEs, or access to PPEs, or access to protocols, etc. And one of the important aspects that was mentioned and we identified during these workshops related to health and safety is the need and the importance of sharing experiences. So this is why we are here today. I mean, of course, this is, as I said, as the World Day for Health and Safety. But we are here to share experience. We will have this, Corteva will share their experience, Vijay will share CIMMYT experience, and I hope that this will be really useful for many of us, of all of us. So if you have any question, any suggestion. So please put that in the chat. We also have at the end of these presentations the chance to discuss, and please raise your hand and ask your questions. Yeah. Another point is we'll also have trying to cover more the audience. We also have other session that probably will be late in the afternoon for people in East Africa, but we'll have another one covering more the West African America time zone. I don't want to extend my discussion here, my thoughts here. So invite first Corteva or our Corteva partner, Paige, to present, as I said, the perspective or their experience in health and safety. Paige, may I ask you to share your screen, and I think that would be better if you introduce yourself than I do that. So I'm pretty sure you do that much better than I can.
Gustavo, thank you. Oh, I really am grateful for this time, and sincerely just honored to be here today. So appreciate it. And are you able to hear me well and see my slides?
Perfectly. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And I will say a little bit about myself and give a short intro as I go through. I wanted to share a little bit about Corteva, and I thought that would give some context as I share my story and how that ties to why I'm just so passionate around safety of the team. As I tell a little bit about Corteva, we like to say we're a startup with over 100 years of experience. So Corteva itself came from a merger between Pioneer, DuPont, and Dow Chemical. And as we look at our purpose, it's really to enrich the lives of those who produce and those who consume, ensuring progress for generations to come. And you can see right from our values, there's 6 of them that we hold very dear. And that's one's to enrich the lives. So we really do want to commit to enhancing lives and the land. And we're active around both. We believe that we do that by building together, that it's through those partnerships and by working together that we can all be successful and that we stand tall. And what this means is that we do act boldly. We're leaders. We don't want to just be followers, that we're looking for those progressive areas to advance, and that we're out in front. And sometimes that can be a scary place to be, but it's the right thing to do. And so we're going to do what's right. And that's also follows with the be upstanding. We're curious. So as scientists, we're always looking to how we can innovate, how we can improve, how we can do this better. And why we're here today, one of our core values is that we live safely. And I'll definitely be talking quite more about that. So look just a little bit about the business details. So it's we have a little over 14 billion in global sales, and with 21,000 employees. So that's been I'd say the exciting part with the merger just about 3 years ago, to bring all these people together, really focused on the farmer and their farmer solutions. 100+ crops. I'll say that's mainly attributed to our crop protection business. So a diverse amount of crops that we have there. We do have a strong portfolio in seeds, and I'll talk a little bit about our R&D. Absolutely a global footprint with over 140 countries. And then, going to that right-hand side, over 150 R&D locations and sites. So hopefully one near you. And as we look at our R&D, very, very, very proud to be a member of R&D. And as I said, over 100 years, specifically in breeding, 100 years of breeding leadership here within this technology. And we like to say fanatically focused on the farmer. And every day we wake up and we think about, what does the farmer need? How can we support? What technology can we develop to do that? And it's within all of our conversations and discussions. So really, really appreciate that focus. And then as we look at the enabling technologies, you can see listed here at our research centers globally. And we have some different types of strategies at the various centers. And I'll also talk about that as we start to talk about safety. And what, as always, it's breeding. So we want more breeding cycles each year, and we're going to integrate those newest traits into our elite germplasm to bring those products to meet our farmer needs. All right, so that's Corteva. And just a brief background of myself to help, again, give a little context into, one, why I'm so excited about this topic and how that has played into my personal career and then that of the teams that I support. And so I've been with Corteva and legacy companies the last 21 years. And so Corteva has been my home during this time. And my background is actually in organic chemistry. So always get excited to talk to those that are in breeding. Have always been, my undergrad was in biology and chemistry and was always curious about both. And so really thrilled to have a chance to work in seeds technology at this point. But as an organic chemist, I actually did 3 internships prior to being hired on as a discovery chemist. And day one, they give you the safety binder. And so I wasn't allowed in the lab until I had read all the safety protocols and the standards before I could step foot in that lab and start to work. And so I just remember constantly, reading through, that binder. And so, like I said, I did 3 internships. So I had 3 opportunities to read that binder. Well, when I got hired on, within the first week, they said, great, Paige, you know this binder so well, you understand our safety culture, and we're going to have you lead our safety program for discovery. And so I did, and had a lot of fun doing that and incorporating some fun. Safety is very serious. It's about protection. It's about looking out for each other. But there's also elements that we can add that can add that recognition, and with that can add some fun. And so really just from day one have appreciated how important safety is in our day-to-day. And then it moved through some various roles within R&D and went out of the lab into human resources, and then out of the office into the field as I supported a field science group in crop protection, first in the US, then China, and then in our merger based out of Singapore, leading our Asia Pacific field science group. And then just about a year and a half ago, repatriated back to the US, and we had an R&D restructure, which gave me the privilege to finally work in the seeds business. And so now I'm the global seeds operations lead, and here the title is network and systems leader. So that's how we've defined that, but I'm leading the global operations for seeds R&D within Corteva. Again, just absolutely thrilled to have some time with you all. And as Gustavo said, the focus is on World Day for Safety and Health at Work, and specifically with a focus on the field. And it is distinctly different when you look at the safety needs, what we and our team are doing each and every day out in the field, that we need to have that focus. We need to have that knowledge of how to be safe and how to keep each other safe. And so happy to share some of that with you all today. Really, when we look at Corteva, as I said, this is a company built on a strong foundation, but we still had the opportunity to name ourselves here a few years ago. And we did that with a lot of intention. And so I didn't know if you had heard the story, so I thought I would share with you where Corteva came from and those concepts. So core means heart, and teva is an ancient word for nature. And so really Corteva is the heart of nature. But sincerely, when you look at Corteva, safety is at the heart of Corteva. And that's what I want to share. So I would say some of the practices, how we have this organized, I wanted to talk a bit around what safety is at Corteva, and then give an example that really does get to the heart of the discussion. And so that's how I'd like to structure the next few minutes. So first, when you're looking at creating that structure or creating that culture and looking at that Corteva lives safely, that in particular, as we look at this, and it says here, the Corteva brand value, that's predominantly external. So about 80% of this is externally driven. So community, the environment, it's our customers, it's consumers, it's that external focus, critical and important. And then as you move to the next, is that core for life. And in this one, it's that identity, it's our safety identity. And so that's about 80% internal. And when you think of that, that's our employees, that's our stakeholders, that's our contractors, that's our partners. And we're always asking what's core for the protection of life. And within that, health, safety, wellness, it's critically important that we look at the whole self as we're at work, and that we're able to go home each day in as good or better shape than when we left. And that's physically and that's mentally. And then we started to define it even further. So we looked at these core areas, and that's more of how we relate to the program. So the first two, like I said, the live safely, it's an external focus. The core for life, an internal focus. And then these core areas is how this all interrelates and how it relates to the structure of our programs and what we have in place for our people. And it's active and it's people focused. So really at the core of these areas, it'd be things like leadership, our values, our behaviors, how we communicate, how we educate, that employee engagement. What does that whole program look like? And it relates to areas such as environment or equipment, maybe chemical, energy, some of those very, very important safety aspects that we interact with each day. And then the core 10, that final, that starts to get to our standards. And so we have, written standards in 10 key areas, or categories that we tend to align them. And so many important, but we try to align it to these core 10. So that's a bit of how we have it structured: externally focused, internally focused, how we interact with the program, and then a listing of our standards. And there's many, many standards that align to the 10 categories. So an example, we had last fall within our breeding team, our global breeding team. And so seed product development is the sub-function which I work. And within that sub-function, we have about 2,200 employees. So I mentioned we had 21,000 within Corteva, 22,000 right now. We have 2,200 that are within seed product development. And within that team, we had a restructure as we started to shift how our team was distributed. And we started to bring a few centralized sites and develop those centralized sites. So as we made some of our sites larger, some of our other sites became smaller, and still very critical and important sites, but just not as many employees. And we may have gone down to approximately 5 employees at some smaller sites. And when that was happening, one, as you can imagine, many changes, many things going on, but one of the really top pieces of feedback that we were receiving from these smaller sites was our partner in safety, our environmental health and safety team. Did you talk to them? How does this relationship change? What does this mean for us? We want to stay safe, as they absolutely will, but how does this change our safety program here at the site now that maybe we had 15 before, or even 10 employees, and now we have 5? What does this look like for us? And really grateful for them to recognize how important the safety is to the site and potential changes and how that impacts them. And so this happened last August. And so we've been working through, and I'm going to share with you some details of what we're doing to have effective safety programs at the site level, and how we are partnering with our environmental health and safety teams. Because as I say here, it sincerely and truly is all about partnership. It's really important. It's that we know how to be safe and we look out for each other. And as you know, there's a lot more details to that too. And so here's 3 areas specifically that we focused on. First was around that field research standards clarity. So as their standards are usually multiple page documents. And so we wanted to make sure that the team not only had the time, but had the focus to be able to discern what parts applied to them. Compliance. There's a compliance component to safety where there's legal standards that we must all meet, and we want to ensure that the team can do that very well and efficiently. And then the culture. It's not just that we can follow the rules to safety, though there's an importance to that, but that it's that looking out for each other, that it's a good thing to intervene if we see that someone's acting unsafe or may not know how to use that piece of equipment in a safe manner, that we are able to assist them, and that also safety can be recognized. And so that is a key element to really get any safety program ingrained and working well, is by having that strong safety culture. And so here's some of the details that went into this. So again, when we looked at that field research standards clarity, we went from our global research centers. So within seed product development, we have about 150 globally. And the standard practice at the initially was that each site would read all of our standards, pull out the parts that applied to them, and executed those standards. What we've moved to is that we still have our global safety standards, and those are critical and important. We have them targeted for the field research environment. So some of those standards, so remember when I said my first day as an intern, I get the binder. Well, it's a very similar binder that our sites would have received as well. And so, because it's our safety standards. And so if there's a lab present on the site, there's the same standards that would apply. But when you have 5 employees at a site, that it's really challenging to be able to read through all of that material and pull out those things that are most impactful to your site, and then stay up to date with all of that. So as a new standard comes out, that new 30 or so page standard, rereading that and rediscerning. And so what we're saying is we are partnering with our sites to ensure that those key areas that they need to focus on, they're aware of, and they still have the entire standard that they can go to if they need more information, but we're bolding those sections and highlighting them, so then it's more easy for our sites to engage with the standard, know what's important to them, and be able to apply it immediately. And the compliance piece. So one, sometimes it's difficult to align with an auditing expectation or interpretation. So you could have 2-3 people read the same standard on certain parts, and it gets a little bit challenging to understand specifically what action needs to be taken. And the other component is that, as you know about safety and about injuries and incidences, it's also, it's actually very similar to kind of that breeding funnel. There tends to be a lot of near misses that happen before an incident occurs. And so what we like to do is we share the near misses of things that have occurred. Maybe it didn't result in an injury, or maybe it didn't result in one of our standards being broken, but it was a close call. And it's helpful to share those close calls with each other so we can learn from each other. And so a lot of times we would start meetings with just sharing, hey, I learned this, or this happened to me, or I saw this happen and I want to share this with the team so we can improve. And we really didn't have a great way of capturing those. And it's not meant to shame or embarrass a team member or employee. It's sincerely to highlight these and learn from each other. So we didn't have a great way of tracking that. And this is something that actually is still in progress for us. So there's multiple systems that we have within Corteva to track these near misses. And so we're currently in the process of discerning the appropriate tool that we'd like to use, because there's quite a few to choose from. So this is something that we're currently doing right now. And so that was the from, and the to is ensuring that we do have a tool for the near misses so we can communicate and track. And then also that we have aligned standards from written documentation to implementation to auditing. So we're all looking at the exact same thing. We all understand what that means, and we can use that to move forward at the site. And then equally, if not more important, really is the culture. And that's the glue that holds all of our safety standards together. And we went from safety with a compliance focus. And when you think about it, when you're spending all your time reading standards and just trying to pick out, what is it that I'm supposed to do from this, it does become more task-based instead of behavior-based. And so we're trying to move from that compliance or task-based culture to really this one of that safety is a part of all that we do, and that wellness and that health is a strong component of this. So we really are moving to that live safely, that we sincerely embrace safety and the environment and all that we do. So just wanting to share 3 specific areas that we've been trying to continuously improve upon. And in this, the driver had been as we looked at site changes and for some of our smaller sites. As I said, safety. We know how to be safe. We ask if we're unsure. And we also look out for each other. And I think those are 2 really key components of safety at our sites. Oh, got a little bit of a delay here on my end. I see it spinning, but really my next slide is just in what I will leave you with. Let me advance it up again. This slide seems to be a little sticky. It's really around what's core for you. So as you ask yourself, when it comes to your personal safety and your day-to-day interactions, your exposure to risk in the workplace, what is core for you? Let me see if we can try it again. There we go. So everyone needs to understand that core for life, it's about protecting the team, it's about protecting your peers, it's about protecting your coworkers, but it's also helping us all be active partners in our own protection. So really, really appreciate this opportunity to have some time with you all, and look forward to Vijay next will present, and then also some time for questions and discussion. So with that, I'll pass it on to Vijay.
I can't share my screen, Gustav. Yeah, no.
Yeah, go ahead, Vijay. Thanks, Paige. Yeah, so I hope that we will have the chance to discuss. Vijay, can you share your screen?
Yes,
I
yes.
can too, if you.
Yes, yes. 1 minute, 1 minute. I think I closed it and opening it again.
And please, Vijay, do not forget to introduce yourself too.
Okay. So while the presentation is coming up, myself, Vijay Chaikam, I have been working for CIMMYT for last 10 years. And for the first 5 years, I was based in Mexico. And from then I'm working in Kenya for CIMMYT. And mostly I'm a double haploid scientist. I developed double haploid technology and scaled it up for CIMMYT breeders and CIMMYT partners. And secondly, I'm also recently taken up the additional responsibilities in trait integration. And I'm also working with research station management while I was in Mexico as well as in Kenya. Currently, last 2 years, I have been the chairman of the station management committee for Kiboko. So I think that would be sufficient for this. Is that okay, Gustavo?
Yeah, definitely, Vijay.
Yes.
So if you could put in presentation mode.
Okay. You can see it well now?
Yeah, we can see Vijay. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Paige, for setting up good precedent for my presentation, because I think you touched upon many of the aspects that involve occupational health and safety. So I will mainly focus on our experiences in some of these safety aspects. So before going, just want to give a brief introduction why occupational health and safety matters. And it matters for many reasons. And it matters for not just organizations, but employees also. So there are obviously obvious benefits or health benefits, especially if people feel that the work environment where they work is free, or at least it's not so dangerous and not so stressful, then they feel that they're mentally strong and that they feel that they're well. So that leads to good quality of life. So, and when people are when people are happy and healthy, it leads to increased productivity at workplace, and it leads to output gains. There is a TED talk about this happiness advantage linking positive brains to performance by a Harvard scientist. So, who elaborately discusses about if people feel safe and happy, how it leads to increased in productivity gains. So please refer to that. And for organizations, there are benefits in relation to administrative and legal benefits. If there are accidents, there may be legal costs, or if organization have to administer sick leaves, or if they have to pay fines for some of these accidents, it will be costly. So for our organizations also, this occupational health and safety is very important. And there are several intangible benefits. For example, if we have good standards of dealing with occupational health and safety issues, it will enhance corporate image, it may enhance talent retention, etc. So there are multiple benefits to both employees and employers. And at CIMMYT, we have a risk management unit, and they have done a lot of work, and they have developed several policies, and they have come up with strategies how to identify and address some of these work-related occupational health and safety issues. According to those documents, these are some of the key components when we are thinking about occupational health and safety. The first one is participation. Participation means everyone, both employee as well as employees, almost every employee is also responsible for thinking about this occupational health and safety. And if they notice any issue, coming back to the organization is important, but to have a much more structured way of addressing this occupational health and safety issues, CIMMYT came up with this country-wide occupational health and safety committees, which serve as a contact point for any issues related to this occupational health and safety, and establishes preventive measures, and also seek what could be the international standard for any risk, how to address them. And major task for this committee is visit different sites and different field sites or offices and check out periodically. Usually we do every 6 months once. We visit the site and see if we interact with the local people there and the workforce there, and see if they have any concerns related to this occupational health and safety. And we do job hazard analysis and checklists, etc. That is one major part for this committee. And then this committee also looks for hazard control measures like PPEs, fire extinguishers. And this committee takes all the requests from the field stations or offices, and we will give to this risk management unit. They in turn goes to the management to seek more funds or to get this type of equipment to prevent accidents, etc. And then we also invite external trainees to train our teams on first aid, PPEs, fire extinguishers, etc. And whenever there are accidents, we analyze the accidents, we take the metrics, and we see what are the near miss events, etc. And then we communicate this again with the management, as well as we formulate strategies to prevent such accidents and develop communication materials on different aspects. And then again, this cycle continues on. So these are the key components of occupational health and safety at CIMMYT. And again, there are hierarchy of controls we think in terms of to control any of these hazards. First one is the lowest, least effective methods are, for example, if for us at research stations, applying this chemical pesticides or other agrochemicals is an important job, and it is quite hazardous. Many of the chemicals are hazardous chemicals. So as you can see, the least effective method is providing this PPEs. That's we definitely do. And administrative control is having standard operating procedures. For example, like after applying this chemical, how people wash themselves, how they keep the equipment themselves, etc. Such protocols we have in place. And then engineering controls, for example, for some chemicals, especially when the crop is young, we don't need to use this knapsack sprayers and use a lot of people. Instead, we can use this boom sprayers attached to a tractor. That type of engineering controls are also we are looking for. And substitution, many times our entomologists and pathologists look for the least hazardous chemical that can replace a more hazardous chemical. And we also look for completely eliminate, for example, use of chemicals whenever there is possible. For example, we have some neem oil or biological controls. If possible, we also try to use them. So this not only applies to CIMMYT, but it can apply to any organization. So these are the control, different hierarchies of controls. Coming to our real hazards that we face in our farm stations, especially based on our experience, here the list is in sequence, which are more frequented. So for example, chemicals, because we apply very frequently, especially recently after the emergence of fall armyworm and maize lethal necrosis. This, because we are dealing with research nurseries, we can't afford to lose the crops. So we have to spray multiple times, almost once a week or once in 2 weeks. And the number of people involved are also quite high. So this comes up as a top priority or top hazard for us. And then many times we also see frequently hazards related to electricity and fires. Usually the fires are mostly caused in our case are due to electric problems like wires touching each other, etc. And we also face this problems with the wild animals like snakes and elephants where we work. So this is another problem, and some farm machinery related, and some, because most of our locations are remote, there are sometimes we face medical emergencies, and sometimes very rare but natural disasters can occur. So this is these are the common hazards we are facing. Coming to chemical hazards, so this Occupational Health and Safety Administration has defined several of these hazards, chemical hazards, but most of the agriculture chemicals either follow this exclamation mark or health hazard. So this exclamation mark means mostly it is just irritating to the skin or the respiratory system, or it may cause dizziness. Or health hazards, we need to be very careful. It may be carcinogenic, it can cause mutations and cause cancers. And sometimes, especially the lab chemicals we deal with are this, comes with the skull and crossbones. This is related to acute toxicity, and we have to take extreme precautions to deal with such chemicals. So other chemicals we don't so commonly deal, for example, flammable chemicals or gas cylinders. This type of chemicals we don't deal so often at our stations. And when dealing with chemical hazards, first, most of these chemicals come with safety data sheets, or previously used to call material safety data sheets. So it has all the information. So the people who are using these chemicals, we we make them to go through to read all of this, especially the health and physical hazards associated with each chemical they're handling, and they also know the physical properties, reactivity, etc., and what first aid or how to store these chemicals, how to dispose these chemicals, etc. So the people who are dealing with our all these chemicals are made aware of this. And we also have some controls. For example, how we store the chemicals. For example, we never mix this flammable chemicals with insecticides or pesticides, so it can lead to fire accidents. So we have a separate area for storing this type of flammables. And every person that are spraying these agrochemicals, or we have given these PPEs, and when they come back from the field after spraying, they wash the equipment in a designated area, as well as they wash. We have washrooms or showers just adjacent to here. They go there and wash themselves, and all this wastewater also is collected into this this type of pond. Usually this pond for the last 7-8 years we did not empty, because where we are, Kiboko is very, we don't have so much rainfall, so usually it doesn't fill up. And the idea is whenever it fills up, we invite a third party company who takes this waste chemical and incinerate that one. So that is the control we have. And for solid waste storage, especially those containers that comes with pesticide, insecticide, we have dug up a pit, and the pit is lined with concrete all the 3 sides. And as you can see, we till I think we want to save, we want to store all this solid waste here till at least it's full, and then again we invite a contractor who can destroy it for us. So we also deal with a very hazardous chemical called colchicine. So we again, all our labs, we inform about these hazards, and all the people working there, even the visitors who come, are made well aware of this chemical and how toxic it is, and they use this personal protective equipment. And most of the process of like after taking the powder and weighing it, the rest of the process is more or less automated. So we don't need to touch any of this. this chemical at any point of time. And once the process is completed, the waste chemical goes into containers like this. And we invite a third-party company who comes and sucks up this solution into their tanker, and they go and incinerate at 3000 degrees Celsius and give a certificate like this, certificate of disposal. So we have stringent protocols to deal with chemicals. So far, we don't have any accidents related to the chemical use. And coming to the second most important hazard we face at our research stations is this fire hazards. And it happened several times. Just within the last 2 months, I think we had fire a couple of times, because this is there, as you can see, these 2 poles are hosting a transformer, and we have electrical wires there. And these wires are very loose. And whenever there is a bird sitting on them, they touch each other, or even when there is a strong wind, they touch each other and trigger a fire, and it can cause. Fortunately, a couple of times it happened during daytime. Hopefully it won't happen in the night, but we are trying to address this issue with the Kenya Power and Lighting Company. But as you know, in some of the countries, it takes long time to address this type of issues. And yeah, so other than being careful and training our people how to deal when there is a fire, our country management is rigorously working on addressing this issue currently. So and these fires also keep happening in where we have generator or very high, for example, irrigation pumps. Sorry, I think there is a flight going. Yes. Yeah, in irrigation pump areas, we occasionally see fires happening. And so to control these fire hazards, we have several things, for example, fire extinguishers, fire alarms. But what we also noted is many times the fires, especially in the buildings, happen under false roofing, just above the false roofing. Many times the contractors just leave the wires like this without putting in a proper plastic or metal shield. So many times these rats come and bite, and then the wires touch each other and cause fire. So we actively inspect these wires now and then. And our people are also well trained now. We have at least last 2 years, we had a couple of trainings in fire extinguisher use. And so I think relatively people are able to handle, but sometimes these fires are beyond our control. People need to be prepared to address it as and when it happens. And another major hazard that we face, and in the last 7-8 years, we lost one person to a snake bite. So the wild animals, where we are working, wild animals are a problem. And Kiboko is surrounded by natural forest, and almost KALRO, Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization, it has a very big land, almost 30,000 hectares around there. So a lot of wild animals which are just roaming around. So snakes are frequent problem, mongoose as well as the porcupines, and we also come across elephants. And another problem we have is with monkeys and baboons. They come and eat our crops. And unfortunately, we can't do anything with it other than guarding against them. We have to engage the people from morning to evening to protect these crops. And it's becoming very expensive. So, and you can't kill any of these animals except snakes, probably. So it will create a conflict with Kenya wildlife. So we invite them and seek whenever we see infestation, for example, if monkeys are around or baboons are around, they come and suggest us what to do. In case if they are becoming uncontrollable, even they can come and they can kill the gang leader or the monkey leader, and then they will be afraid and they won't come back. So we are working with multiple organizations like Kenya Wildlife to address some of these issues. And to address this, especially snakes and rat issues, we use the snake repellents and rat baits frequently. So whenever we have crop harvested, these rats come first, and following the rats, the snakes come. So usually before just harvest, we invite this third-party company that comes up with these repellents and puts around our facilities. And we also, our organizations, give this type of gum boots and dust coats for our people who are working, so that at least the snakes may not bite them, or they are much safer with these gum boots and all. And we also are working with a local doctor within the Kiboko site, where it is a small village. Next to that, we have a small dispensary where there is a nurse place. We get the antivenom, and whenever there is an incident, the nurse can come and administer this antivenom as well. Not just for CIMMYT, all the community around this Kiboko is using this antivenom, and just recently we could able to save a life because the antivenom is there and we could give him in correct time. He's not working for CIMMYT, he's a local, he's a local person there. So that is how we are dealing with some of these wild animals. And as you can see, other major hazard is from the farm machinery, handling farm machinery, especially using many times accidents happen when the vehicles are moving, some or when people try to touch some moving parts. A noise is any incident, at least in the last 5-10 years. So, and you can go to this, there is a great resource at Great Plains. There is a website which they develop a lot of educational materials on implement safety or tractor safety. So as you can see, what are the types of injuries that can happen when using tractors and how to deal with it. Similarly, what happens with sound, how long can a person can operate. For example, I was really surprised to see that a person can operate tractor just for only 4 minutes at this decibel. That means without a cab. With a cab, or with protection, they can operate 1.5 hours straight. So this type of information is very good information available at this website. And again, when people are working on this type of equipment, we provide this noise cancelling headphones, and not just for the tractors. People are operating planters, motorized sprayers, and irrigation pumps. So, and whole body vibration, again, major problem. It can cause low back pain and muscle and fatigue. And again, it indicates like people can work only for 4 to 5 hours on tractors to prevent any of this type of problems related to back pain or muscle pain. So they have given several several strategies to prevent this damage. And another hazard we face sometimes is cold room hazard. One time it happened, some of our colleagues, we were just checking in the cold room, all the inventory, and it locked, and we could not open from inside. Somehow it locked so strong, we could not open, and we could not even, no one can hear us. So this is a real danger in the cold rooms. And after that, somehow after banging the door for several minutes, someone fortunately came and opened it. But to prevent such accident to happen, so we put up this exit sign, and then also an alarm just outside this cold room, so that such accidents don't, if they happen, at least someone can hear us and help us. So, and medical emergencies, we do have this type of problems occasionally, and people suddenly collapse because of heart attacks or cardiac arrest and choking, and this type of several of these emergencies. And we placed a lot of this first aid kits, and we also trained our team in administering the first aid. And as I mentioned earlier, we have collaboration with local medical clinics, and even we had collaboration, for example, when the whole country, Kenya, don't have vaccines against COVID. I think some of our staff could able to get it because we have good collaboration with the local medical clinic there. And natural disasters are very rare at our field site, at least at Kiboko. But in Mexico, when we are working, cyclones are a very problematic, frequent in Agua fria station, very close to the coast. But again, the teams have to think about the emergency procedures and the shelters, evacuation routes. If you face such natural disasters frequently, and having emergency contacts and how to contact them, how to reach different people during emergencies, those protocols also needed, and we do have at our CIMMYT-Kenya office. And overall, I think last few years, we also try to provide better working conditions for our staff. As you can see, dust coats, gloves, masks, hats, and when during hot summers, probably they won't feel so hot because of the hats. And we provide purified water, which is not so common. Many of our research stations are remote and they don't have access to the purified water, and like latrines, everything. So the people feel like they feel that they are working in a safe and secure environment. That helps us again to increase our productivity. And environment also comes into picture when we are talking about occupational health, safety, but usually occupational health, safety, and environments all come together. So again, as you can see, earlier we used to use sprinkler irrigation. It was using much more water. And now we completely converted most of our field operations to drip irrigation, and we use this soil conservation practices. Whenever we are not using the soil, we are using green manure crops, and in the bunds we make sure that soil erosion don't happen. We use these creepers like this, and our soil is also getting very how to say hard. So to prevent that hard pan, with EIB excellence in breeding, also recommended to use some of these crops like radish, and we use them. As you can see, it can go up to 1 to 2, or at least 1 to 1.5 meters deep. So this type of approaches are helping us to conserve our soil as well as water, and we are also paying attention to how we are disposing some of this plastic. So for example, we accumulate a lot of this plastic drip tape and some of the pollination bags. Again, we are giving for recycling. Some companies are willing to recycle these things, and we are giving them for recycling. And we are also using some solar power, and we are also proposing to excellence in breeding to support in solar power, not just for not just for saving costs, but also for conserving the environment. So some of these things we are rigorously following, or we are seeking help from excellence in breeding. And again, having these several protocols and processes is in place is one thing, and having a culture of adapting this occupational health and safety is also very important part. So I think overall at CIMMYT, at least what from my personal understanding and experience over last few years, having these committees helped a lot, because Before, it was quite open. Anyone can recommend any report or see any problems. But now it became more systematic, and these committees visit the sites frequently, and they seek feedback from different stakeholders. And so the issues which never could have come earlier are coming out. What people feel they think is a risk or hazard, it comes up now much more openly. And we have methods for registering incidents and reviewing these incidents, and about, again, communication and training to our staff. All of this is helping us to create a culture of adapting this occupational health and safety procedures or protocols. So I think I don't have much. With that, I would like to thank you, Gustavo, and thank you, EAB, for inviting me to present on this. Thank you.
Thanks, Vijay. Thanks a lot. It was really a good presentation. I'm pretty sure that it helped others to understand how you manage that, and the importance that health and safety is for, how important health and safety is for you and for CIMMYT. I would like to open for questions. I see that we have some questions in the chat. Not only open for questions, but of course open for discussions and suggestions, etc. So let's go first for some questions in the chat. I see one from Amir. What is the source of safety standard? Is there any international reference you follow? I think this is probably to Paige. I don't know if you...
Yes, I'm happy to speak to this, and Vijay showed it as well. One of the I would say the international safety standards that we use is around OSHA, and then as we look at additional, whether federal or local laws and standards, we take, obviously we're going to take all those to account and follow. And then typically as a company, as we look across what our standards are, we're going to use the one that is the most stringent as we apply. We ensure that we're at the minimum following local law, but if our company standard is a little bit more than that, we do that a little bit more to ensure that from a company perspective, we're being as consistent as we can. But that's how we leverage across. So if we have a country that may have a little tighter standard, that's what we'll use as we go. And we do take a lot from, because some of our field sites also have labs and have controlled environments. And so specifically when it comes to those labs and controlled environments, there's a lot of standards that are available from industry, from production plants, for example, that we modify to apply to our research center setting.
Thanks, Paige. I also have here one question also from Amanda. I think it's to you. You mentioned near misses. So yes. How is that communicated? Do you have any accident report and system and investigation policy?
Yes, happy to. And so first I'll start with the near misses, and it does depend by group. So we have various functions, sub-functions. So usually exactly how those near misses are communicated can vary across the company. Within seed product development, we typically share those within that site. And from systems that we use to capture near misses, that, as I mentioned, there's kind of a lot that we have. It varies all the way from using Excel to track. So they may have a shared Excel workbook that the local team is capturing that information in, all the way to we have some teams that use OutSystem apps. So that's a low code app that can be written and designed to, so on a phone, on a smartphone, can really easily capture that near miss in real time and get captured. There's also there's a program called Sheets that is also being used that you can capture those near misses in. So that varies. We're trying to uniform, do this more uniformly. So that way there's just one place where all this is captured for a near miss. And then we'll share it usually at team meetings or, when the research site meets either in their daily or weekly catch-ups, then they'll share some of those near misses as well, so we can learn from each other. And then from an accident report or like an incident that has occurred, we do use a program called ETQ, and that is a database that tracks every change that's made within that database. And so those incidences are captured. And then if there's an audit and improvements are needed at a site, there's a date that's also captured about when that update needs to have occurred. And then that site lead needs to come in and then click that that's been done and list that date as well. And then we pull reports weekly for all of our sites to let them know any due dates that are coming up and communicate that so that they can be, it's more of a compliance check, but ensuring that they're in compliance for any fixes that might be needed at a site.
Thanks, Paige. We have one question here from Claire, Vijay. How do you uphold these SOPs at Kiboko, which is also used by other breeding institutes such as Carroll? Do they cut across? Do you have a common farm manager? Are some of the technical staff and casual laborers shared between institutes? If so, how do you manage this? I think that you can read that in the chat, but
yes, I understand that question, Gustavo. Yes, Claire. I think at Kiboko, as of now, for example, we are sharing several of, for example, tractors. We are sharing. Caldo and CIMMYT is sharing the tractors, some of the labs, some of the offices, even the fields. I think commonly designed. Every season, we just before planting, we work with each other to decide which fields to plant. But you're right, we don't have a common manager for both of these organizations, but we collaborate on many aspects. And many of the times, as I said, we are sharing the equipment. For example, I'm pretty sure that many of the spraying equipment, these are all shared. And some of the labor actually we share, or sometimes they work for CIMMYT for some time when we can't engage them for legal restrictions, and they go and work for Calro and vice versa. So many of these guys are common workers, are very well trained on some of these issues. But yes, you're right. We can improve further collaboration on this and have a common, protocols and procedures to follow. Okay.
Thanks, Vijay. Another question that also to you here is from Amir. Are you also considering lab safety and emergency actions regarding chemical exposure?
Yes. Actually, that is very, compared to agrochemicals typically are not so hazardous like pesticides and insecticides. But in labs, sometimes we deal with much more hazardous chemicals. For example, in doubled haploid program, we deal with a chemical called colchicine. So that is very, very extremely toxic. And I did not present elaborately on that, but we have much more stringent process and protocols. For example, emergency showers, who can access the labs, all from very different levels. So we have instituted controls to prevent any type of hazard. If there is a hazard or exposure happens, how to deal with it. We have some standard operating procedures when something happens like this. Even the whole facility, double haploid facility, we have engineered in such a way that people don't touch this chemical or don't get exposed to this chemical. So we have instituted this type of things to control this hazard.
Thanks, Vijay. One question, Paige, I think this goes more on the cultural aspect. This question is from Vinicius. How long and how was the transition to an HSE culture in Corteva? And is education more important than compliance for a smooth transition?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'd say with culture, you're constantly in that transition as you bring in new employees and bringing them in and hearing their perspectives and incorporating that into your culture. There's constant change. And so I would say, especially as I think and reflect back on legacy company into Corteva, it's not always such a smooth transition. It really does have its ups and downs. And so you'll see every few years really a need to kind of have that refocus, rethink, how do we do this differently? Or if there's a large organizational change, a time to, again, kind of get grounded on what's most important. And so I think it's a great question, not trying to avoid answering, but it's a really challenging one because it never ends, to be honest. And then the other parts of that, and one thing though that I would say is, I think why such a really strong safety focus from early on though does come from our legacy companies. So when you think of Dow and DuPont initially as chemical companies coming in, and then as DuPont had brought in Pioneer and bringing in a lot of that strong safety as well. I think when you have a chemical company or a chemical manufacturing facilities, that level of safety is very high. And so bringing those cultural elements then into the field environment, I think our biggest challenge was more adapting it to what's appropriate. So it's still a strong safety. We all care about the health and safety of our team members, but how do you make that appropriate, but scaled appropriate too? And then that second question, I think it's a good nuance that you're highlighting here. Is education more important than compliance? And it's not just that we're following the rules and checking the box that we got our standards correct, but it's do we really live that? And if we live that, then we're constantly on the lookout for things that may be unsafe and we fix them, or we intervene when we see a colleague doing something that isn't as safe as it could be, or they may not know how to use that piece of equipment. And out in the field, wow, we're using equipment that we could get really, really injured on if we didn't use it correctly. And so I do think that's a very great point, that education, those discussions, those safety site checks where they're talking, it's not just a checklist that we're going through. Those checklists can be very important, but hopefully it's more in sparking that discussion at the site than just check. Good. I got my safety done for today, and now I can move on to my job. No, it's part of all that we do. It's a great question.
Yeah. Thanks, Paige. I see Hans. Hans, you have your hand raised. Please jump in.
Yeah, Gustavo. Thank you. I don't have a question, but I just want to make a comment. First of all, Gustavo, thank you for thinking about and organizing this session. I think this was, I felt it was long overdue. Since I've come to join the CG system, I myself realized that there's very little appreciation for the subject what we're talking about here. But on the other hand, it is so critical and so fundamental that we have some of these principles defined and so that our employees really adhere to. And secondly, Paige, thank you very much, and Vijay, thank you as well, for sharing your experiences and things which you have been doing in your part of the world. Very, very critical. So one thing I would like to emphasize here is that, you know, setting these standards or compliance requirements or saying this is what we're going to do, this is what we shouldn't be do, is relatively much easier. You hire people who have some background, they can define those things, they can set the guidelines and rules. The most difficult part is creating that culture, making sure that people really adhere to and comply with those on day-to-day basis without someone reminding them. And that's the most hard part. And many of the large corporations or organizations have spent years and years to build that culture. And not easy. Paige and others can speak to that how hard and what it really takes. But one of the most important thing which we have seen and makes a difference is what we call in their language, you have to set the tone at the top. The leadership, the managers, whosoever the top person is at a given site or in lab or whatever that work unit is, the top leadership there has to show it, demonstrate it, and they need to live that culture. Otherwise, it does not happen. So I think we as managers or leaders here, wherever we are, we have that number one responsibility that if we have to comply with these things, let's make sure that we ourselves really live that culture. Otherwise, it won't work. So I just want to emphasize that point. I think this is very, very critical. Thank you.
Thanks, Hans. Definitely to culture, of course, leaders need to be the example to follow and guide the team to the different culture, not to a better. I wouldn't say a better culture, but a culture that especially in the health and safety, that provide a safer place, a good condition for the employees to work. But I definitely agree with you. But of course, in the other hand, is everyone we need to push, even because I can't, for instance, or change the leaders. I mean, what I can is push to things that we believe and push them to change too. No, of course, I can't wait only for them. We need to care each other. If this is something that we see that's wrong, we need to push and one day we will have a better place for everyone. No, I'm not saying that I disagree. I'm just saying that's everyone. No. Yeah, and I can't see any other question. I don't know if we have more questions. If so, please raise your hand. Otherwise, I would invite Paige and Vijay for just a final comment or final thought, and then maybe another recommendation. Yeah. Hands as an old hand or new hand? Is our right or left hand? Was that an old hand? Okay, yeah. So Paige, Vijay, maybe final comments or final thoughts, if you have some.
Yes, as Claire asked a question about Calro and CIMMYT, I think, Gustavo, you are well aware now. We are talking about centralized operations, and I think once we have such centralized operations and a team to specifically look into this type of issues and bring different issues and actively address this type of occupational hazards, and I think it will get better and better even in CG and NOS partners organizations. That's the only comment I have.
Thanks, Vijay. Yeah, thanks for that. Paige, any final comment from there?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, and I did see one other question that was in there is just around, how I talked about if we have a long safety standard and how to focus in on maybe less verbiage and kind of get to the point of what applies to the site. So the practical way that we do that is we have icons. And so we have icons nested within the document. And so it's basically hyperlinks that when you click on let's say it's seeds or greenhouse, you can click on that and then go straight to that section that applies. It's still important that they are aware of the entire standard, and maybe at least by skimming the heading. So if there's a piece of equipment that might be different, that they're able to see that. But that's how we help them. I'd say shortcut the time, but not shortcut the safety practices that we have. So that's the practical. Just in closing, I do, again, just want to say thank you for the invitation. Safety is something that health, safety, and wellness impacts us all. And so there's no one ultimate right way to do this, and it's by learning from each other that we're all able to improve. And so I learned some things today. I really am grateful for this time, and please continue to reach out as you have questions. Happy to engage. Thank you.
Thanks, Paige. Thanks, everyone. As Paige said, if we have more questions, suggestions, please send us an email. And of course, we'll be more than happy to facilitate that and help to answer any question that anyone may have. Thanks a lot. As I said, we will have another session covering the other. It would be interesting to see different perspective from different group too. So, but if anyone wants to join again this important topic, or discussion, please feel free. It will be more than welcome. Yeah, and also, as I said too, we have for some stations that we as CIMMYT we support, will help with developing better plan on how to deal with health and safety. So we'll be working close with them. Yeah, and I think the another point here is these materials, recordings will make that available to you. We'll still need to see how that, but we will do that. We will put that either in the EIB webpage, I don't know, but anyway, we will communicate that later to you. Thanks a lot. Thanks, and see you in the few hours, I believe. Thanks, Paige. Thanks, Vijay. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Gustavo. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.